Listen, I've been around the galaxy for 3 centuries, seen species from every corner of known space, and let me tell you something. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day humans showed up at our diplomatic summit. The name's Vec Prime, by the way. Senior xenobiologist for the Galactic Federation, keeper of peace, and apparently complete fool when it comes to understanding Earth's finest export. Chaos wrapped in deceptively calm packaging. The morning started normal enough. Well, as normal as anything gets when you're hosting representatives from 47 different worlds, each more paranoid than the last about who might be plotting their extinction this week. The Federation Council had called this emergency meeting after reports of a new species requesting membership. Standard procedure, really. Show up, display your weapons, prove you're civilized enough not to use them unless absolutely necessary, sign some papers, and boom! Welcome to the Galactic community. But humans? Oh, humans had to be different, didn't they? I was reviewing security protocols when Commander Threx 9 stormed into my office, all 4 of his armored limbs clicking against the metal floor, in that way that meant serious trouble. His species, the Catherian Empire, hadn't survived 3 galactic wars by being subtle. When a Catherian warrior looked worried, everyone else should probably start running. Vec Prime, his voice buzzed through his translator with barely contained anxiety. We have a problem with the new species delegation. I looked up from my data pad, already feeling a headache forming behind my secondary eye clusters. What kind of problem? Did they bring forbidden technology? Biological weapons? Please tell me they didn't try to smuggle in another one of those reality-bending devices. Threx 9's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sure sign of confusion among his kind. No, Vec Prime. The opposite. They brought nothing. Nothing? I set down my pad, giving him my full attention. Define nothing. No plasma rifles, no energy shields, no molecular disruptors, no kinetic weapons, no defensive barriers, no combat armor. Number. He paused, his translator struggling with what he was trying to say. No weapons at all. For a moment, I just stared at him. In 3 centuries of diplomatic service, I'd never heard those words in that particular combination. Species didn't just show up to Federation meetings unarmed. It was like showing up to a swimming competition without knowing how to breathe underwater. Technically possible, but guaranteed to end badly. Are you absolutely certain? I asked, standing up and activating my communication unit. Did security run a full scan? 5 times, Threx 9 confirmed, his voice box practically vibrating with disbelief. The humans have no weapons, no defensive equipment. They're wearing what appears to be decorative cloth. I pulled up the security feed on my wall display, and there they were. 3 humans standing in our reception area, looking around with the kind of casual interest you'd expect from tourists visiting a museum. Not representatives of a species requesting entry into the most dangerous political alliance in the galaxy. The first was a tall male with dark skin and graying hair, wearing what humans apparently called a suit. Simple, elegant, and about as threatening as a flower arrangement. The second was a shorter female with red hair tied back in a practical style, dressed in similar formal wear. And the third was where things got interesting. She was average height for a human, with brown hair and eyes that seemed to miss absolutely nothing. Unlike her companions, she moved with a subtle grace that set off every predator recognition instinct I'd developed over the centuries. Not the obvious threat display of a warrior species, but something far more unsettling. She looked relaxed. Have they made any requests? I asked, still watching the feed. Just standard diplomatic courtesies, Threx 9 replied. Oh, and they asked if we had any coffee, whatever that is. I switched to the audio feed just in time to hear the female with brown hair laughing at something one of our Centaurian guards had said. Actually, laughing. Not the polite diplomatic chuckling that usually passed for humor in these situations, but genuine amusement. "Sir," my assistant's voice crackled through the communication, "the human delegation is ready for the security briefing. Send them to conference room 7, I instructed. And Threx 9? I want full surveillance. Something about this doesn't add up." The walk to the conference room gave me time to review what little intelligence we'd gathered about humanity. They'd only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their technology was roughly equivalent to what most species possessed when they first left their home systems, and they'd survived their planetary unification wars with surprisingly low casualties. Standard stuff, really. Nothing that explained why they'd show up to a galactic diplomatic summit completely defenseless. Conference Room 7 was designed to accommodate representatives from species with wildly different environmental needs. The lighting could be adjusted across 17 different spectrums. The atmosphere could be modified for everything from methane breathers to silicon-based life forms, and the furniture could reconfigure itself to support anything from centipedes to energy beings. The humans had apparently declined all modifications and were sitting comfortably in standard atmospheric conditions, looking for all the world like they belonged there. "Welcome to the Galactic Federation," I began, taking my seat across from them. "I am Vec Prime, senior xenobiologist, and your assigned liaison for the membership evaluation process." The gray-haired male stood and offered what I recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Thank you, Vec Prime. I'm Ambassador Marcus Reed, and these are my colleagues, Dr. Elena Torres and Captain Maya Singh." "Captain." That was interesting. I made a mental note to research human military rankings later. "Before we begin the formal proceedings," I continued, "I'm required to conduct a security verification. Standard procedure requires all visiting species to demonstrate their defensive capabilities and declare any weapons or advanced technologies they've brought for the summit." The three humans exchanged glances, and I caught something that looked suspiciously like amusement in Captain Singh's expression. Ambassador Reed cleared his throat. "Vec Prime, I believe there may be some confusion. We haven't brought any weapons." "No weapons," I repeated carefully. "None at all." "None at all," Dr. Torres confirmed cheerfully. I activated my datapad and pulled up the standard questionnaire. "No energy weapons? No projectile weapons? No chemical weapons? No biological agents? No nanotechnology? No dimensional manipulation devices? No reality-altering equipment?" No, and definitely no," Captain Singh said, ticking off each item on her fingers. "Though I have to say, that last one sounds fascinating. Do species actually bring reality-altering equipment to diplomatic meetings?" "The Vorthan Collective did," I replied absently, still staring at my checklist. "They accidentally turned 3 conference rooms into abstract art installations. We're still trying to figure out how to turn them back." Captain Singh laughed again, that same genuine sound I'd heard on the security feed. "Well, you don't have to worry about that from us. We're disappointingly normal when it comes to bending the laws of physics." I looked up at her. "Captain Singh, perhaps you could explain exactly what role you serve in this delegation? Your title suggests military experience." "Former military," she corrected. "These days I'm more of a cultural advisor. I help other species understand human behavior patterns." "And your current military carries no weapons?" The question seemed to catch all 3 of them off guard, and they shared another one of those looks that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, Captain Singh smiled, And something about that expression made every survival instinct I possessed start screaming warnings. "Oh, we carry weapons," she said quietly. "You just haven't learned to recognize them yet." Before I could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. My comm unit crackled to life with urgent reports from the security center. "Vec Prime, priority alert. Unknown vessels are approaching the station." I jumped to my feet, already reaching for my emergency protocols. "How many ships? What class?" 17 confirmed contacts. Catherian battlecruisers. They're demanding immediate surrender of the station. My blood went cold. The Catherian rebels had been a threat for decades, but they'd never been bold enough to attack a Federation diplomatic summit. The irony wasn't lost on me that they were the same species as our own security commander. "Battle stations," I ordered. "Activate all defensive systems, and someone get these civilians to the emergency shelters." I turned to apologize to the human delegation, expecting to find them huddled together in fear like every other non-military species would be in this situation. Instead, I found Ambassador Reed calmly adjusting his tie. Doctor. Torres pulling up something on a small electronic device, and Captain Singh. Captain Singh was stretching. "Excuse me," I said, my voice pitched higher than I intended. "Did you understand what I just said? We're under attack by one of the most dangerous rebel factions in the galaxy. You need to get to safety immediately." Captain Singh finished her stretching routine and looked at me with that unsettling smile again. "Vec Prime, could I ask you a question? This is really not the time for... How long do you think it would take those rebel ships to break through your defenses?" I paused, running quick calculations in my head. "With 17 battle cruisers? Maybe 30 minutes if we're lucky. 20 if they've upgraded their weapons systems since the last engagement. And how long would it take them to board the station and reach this conference room? Another 10 minutes, assuming our security forces can slow them down at all." Captain Singh nodded thoughtfully. "So, we have about 40 minutes total before they get here." "If everything goes perfectly, yes. But Captain Singh, you really need to." She held up a hand, and something about the gesture made me stop talking immediately. It wasn't threatening exactly, but it carried an authority that seemed to bypass my conscious mind and speak directly to some primitive part of my brain that remembered when stopping meant the difference between living and becoming something else's dinner. "Vec Prime," she said, her voice taking on a different quality entirely. "You asked about weapons earlier. You wanted to know why we didn't bring any to your diplomatic summit." Another explosion rocked the station, and the lights flickered as our defensive systems came online. "The truth is," Captain Singh continued, seemingly oblivious to the chaos erupting around us, "we did bring weapons. We brought the most dangerous weapons in known space. We just didn't bring any equipment." She flexed her fingers, and for the first time since the humans had arrived, I felt genuine fear. "You see, Vec Prime, humans are the weapons. We just don't usually mention that in polite company." The lights went out completely for a moment before the emergency systems kicked in, bathing the room in an eerie red glow. In that dim light, Captain Singh's smile looked positively predatory. "Now then," she said, rolling her shoulders like a fighter preparing for a bout, "shall we go introduce these rebels to Earth's diplomatic philosophy?" Ambassador Reed sighed and loosened his tie. "Maya, try not to make too much of a mess. We still have 3 more species to meet with after this." Dr. Torres looked up from her device, which was now displaying what appeared to be detailed schematics of the station. "I've got their approach vectors mapped out. They'll hit Docking Bay 7 first, then move through the residential sectors to avoid our heaviest defenses. Clever, Captain Singh mused. Unfortunately for them, clever and smart aren't the same thing. She turned to me, and in the red emergency lighting, her expression was unlike anything I'd seen from any species in 3 centuries of diplomatic service. It was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying. Vec Prime, I'm going to need you to do something for me. What? I managed to croak. I need you to call your security commander and tell him to pull all Federation forces back to the Central Command Center. Don't engage the rebels. Don't try to slow them down. Just let them come. Are you completely insane? I sputtered. Those are Catherian battle troops. They'll slaughter anyone who gets in their way. Captain Singh's smile widened, and I realized with dawning horror that she was looking forward to this. Vec Prime, she said gently, trust me when I say that we're much more dangerous to them than they are to us. The only question is whether you want your people in the way when we demonstrate why humans don't need to carry weapons. Another explosion, closer this time. Emergency klaxons were wailing throughout the station, and I could hear weapons fire echoing through the corridors. I looked at the 3 humans sitting calmly in my conference room while the galaxy's most feared rebel faction prepared to storm our station, and I made what was probably either the smartest or stupidest decision of my very long career. I activated my comm unit. Threx 9, this is Vec Prime. Pull all Federation forces back to Central Command. Do not engage the boarding parties. Repeat, do not engage. Sir, have you lost your mind? We can't just let them. That's a direct order, Commander. Fall back and await further instructions. I closed the channel and looked at Captain Singh. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I, she replied cheerfully. But don't worry. If this goes badly, it'll be over too quickly for regrets. Somehow, that wasn't as reassuring as I think she meant it to be. The sound of weapons fire was getting closer, and Captain Singh was still smiling. What happened next will haunt my dreams for the rest of my considerably long life. Not because it was particularly gruesome, mind you, but because it completely shattered everything I thought I knew about warfare, diplomacy, and the fundamental nature of intelligent species. The first Catherian rebel burst through the conference room doors exactly 38 minutes after the initial attack, which meant Captain Singh's timing estimates had been remarkably accurate. He was a massive specimen, even by Catherian standards, wearing full combat armor that could deflect plasma bolts and carrying enough firepower to level a small building. He took one step into the room, raised his weapon, and then something extraordinary happened. He stopped. Not because he wanted to, mind you. He stopped because Captain Singh had moved faster than my eyes could track, somehow getting behind him and doing something to his neck that made him freeze completely. The weapon clattered to the floor as his armored form went rigid. Pressure point manipulation, Dr. Torres explained helpfully, as if she were commenting on the weather. Humans spent millennia learning exactly where to touch other beings to make them stop working properly. Most species develop technology to solve problems, Ambassador Reed added, straightening his jacket. Humans developed themselves. I watched in fascination and growing terror as the paralyzed Catherian's eyes moved frantically, the only part of him still capable of motion. Captain Singh patted him gently on his armored shoulder. Don't worry, big guy. You'll get feeling back in about 10 minutes, though you might want to reconsider your career choices while you're thinking it over. 3 more rebels rounded the corner, weapons raised and ready for a firefight. What they found instead was their squad leader standing motionless in the doorway like a very large, very expensive statue. What did you do to Krex Alpha? The leader demanded, his translator crackling with aggression. Nothing permanent, Captain Singh replied, stepping into view with her hands clearly visible and empty. Just a gentle reminder that armor only protects the parts it covers. The rebel leader made a sound that his translator couldn't quite handle, probably some form of Cytherian profanity. "You're just humans! Weak little mammals, with no natural weapons." Captain Singh tilted her head thoughtfully. "You know, I get that a lot. Dr. Torres, would you mind explaining to our new friends about human evolutionary development?" Dr. Torres pulled out her electronic device again, and I realized it was some kind of portable database. Certainly, humans evolved as persistence hunters on a world with gravity approximately 20% higher than galactic standard. Their cardiovascular systems are designed for extended pursuit of prey across varied terrain. Their hands can generate crushing pressure, equivalent to most industrial tools. Their bite force can shatter materials rated for space construction. Their bones are denser than most species' armor plating. She paused to tap something on her screen. Oh, and they're the only known species that can dislocate their own joints voluntarily to escape restraints, then reset them manually. Fascinating adaptation, really. The rebels were looking distinctly less confident now. Their leader tried to regain control of the situation by pointing his weapon directly at Captain Singh. "Enough! Surrender now, or we'll—" He never finished the sentence. Captain Singh had moved again, and this time I actually saw part of what she did. It involved grabbing his weapon hand, doing something that made an unpleasant cracking sound, and using his own momentum to send him spinning into the wall, hard enough to leave a dent in the metal plating. The remaining two rebels opened fire immediately, filling the air with energy bolts that should have reduced any organic being to component atoms. Instead, Captain Singh seemed to flow between the beams like water, each shot missing by mere centimeters as she closed the distance between them. The first rebel went down when she hit him somewhere around the solar plexus with her elbow. The impact sound was like a shuttle crash, and he folded around her arm before collapsing in a heap. The second managed to get off 3 more shots before she reached him, each one somehow missing despite being fired at point-blank range. Humans also possess exceptional spatial awareness and reaction times. Dr. Torres continued her lecture as Captain Singh efficiently disabled the last rebel. Their brains process movement and trajectory data faster than most shipboard computers. It's quite remarkable, really. Ambassador Reed checked his timepiece. "Maya, we're at 4 minutes, 30 seconds. New personal record?" "The armor slowed me down," Captain Singh replied, not even breathing heavily. "Plus, I was being gentle. Didn't want to accidentally break anything important." I stared at the scene before me. 5 of the galaxy's most feared warriors, armed with military-grade weapons and wearing combat armor, had been neutralized in under 5 minutes by a single human female wearing what appeared to be formal business attire. "How?" I whispered. Captain Singh looked at me with what might have been sympathy. "Vec Prime. Most species in your Federation developed intelligence first, then built tools to compensate for their physical limitations. Humans developed as tool users, but we never stopped being predators. We just got very, very smart about it." She gestured toward the disabled rebels. "These soldiers are trained to fight other Cytherians, or maybe some of the other warrior species in your alliance. They know how to counter energy weapons, kinetic weapons, even some exotic technologies. But they have no idea how to fight something that doesn't follow their rules." More weapon fire echoed through the corridors, getting closer. Captain Singh cocked her head, listening with the same focused attention I'd seen from apex predators on dozens of worlds. Sounds like about 30 more heading this way. Heavy weapons team, probably carrying plasma artillery. Will that be a problem? Ambassador Reed asked. Only if they're in a hurry, Captain Singh replied. She turned to me. Vec Prime, is there another way out of this section? Somewhere with better tactical positioning. The main atrium, I said numbly. 2 levels down. Multiple entry points, but also multiple escape routes. Perfect. She started toward the door, then paused. Oh, and you might want to record this next part for your Federation archives. I have a feeling there are going to be questions about human combat capabilities after today. The journey to the atrium was surreal. We moved through corridors filled with the sounds of battle, past emergency barricades and defensive positions, while 3 humans in business attire walked calmly through it all like they were taking a stroll through a park. Every time we encountered rebels, the same pattern repeated. They would see unarmed humans, assume easy targets, and then discover that their assumptions were fatally flawed. Captain Singh moved through them like a force of nature, while Ambassador Reed and Dr. Torres provided tactical analysis and what they called moral support. "Left shoulder, Maya," Dr. Torres would call out. "He's favoring his right side." "Duck and pivot," Ambassador Reed would add. "Classic pincer movement coming up." And Captain Singh would flow through combat scenarios that should have been impossible, turning the rebels' own weapons and tactics against them with casual efficiency. By the time we reached the main atrium, word had apparently spread through the rebel force that something was very wrong with their supposedly easy target. Instead of the scattered search teams we'd been encountering, we found ourselves facing the entire remaining force. 23 heavily armed Catherian warriors arranged in a defensive formation around their commander. The commander was enormous, even by Catherian standards, wearing ceremonial armor that marked him as a veteran of multiple galactic conflicts. His weapon was a plasma cannon that could punch through starship hulls, and his tactical display showed he'd been coordinating the entire attack. "So," he announced, his voice echoing through the vast space, "you're the humans causing all this trouble." "That would be us," Captain Singh agreed pleasantly. "Though, to be fair, we didn't start this. We were having a perfectly civilized conversation about diplomatic protocols when you decided to drop by uninvited." The commander's mandibles clicked in what I recognized as aggressive amusement. 3 soft little mammals against the finest warriors of the Catherian rebellion. This should be educational. "Oh, it will be," Ambassador Reed said quietly. "Just not in the way you're expecting." What happened next defied every tactical manual I'd ever studied. Instead of seeking cover or attempting to negotiate, the 3 humans spread out into what appeared to be a completely exposed position in the center of the atrium. They had no weapons, no armor, and no apparent plan beyond walking directly toward 23 beings specifically trained to kill. The rebels opened fire simultaneously. The air filled with enough destructive energy to vaporize a small asteroid, all focused on 3 human targets who had nowhere to run and nothing to hide behind. Except they weren't there anymore. Captain Singh moved like liquid lightning, flowing between energy beams that should have been impossible to dodge. But more than that, she seemed to know exactly where each shot would be fired before the rebels pulled their triggers. She ducked under one beam, rolled sideways to avoid another, and somehow used the confusion of the crossfire to get close enough to reach the first rebel. Meanwhile, Ambassador Reed had done something I hadn't thought possible. He'd used his formal jacket as a weapon. Somehow, he'd managed to snag an energy rifle with the fabric, redirect its fire back at its owner, and use the resulting explosion as cover to reach the rebel formation's flank. Dr. Torres, apparently not content to let her colleagues have all the fun, had picked up a piece of debris from the earlier fighting and was using it with surgical precision to disable weapons and armor systems. Humans also excel at improvisation, she called out cheerfully, while using what appeared to be a broken comm unit to short-circuit a plasma rifle. We have a saying, adapt, improvise, overcome. It served us well. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in less than 3 minutes. 23 of the galaxy's most feared warriors lay unconscious, disarmed, or temporarily paralyzed throughout the atrium. Their commander stood alone in the center, his plasma cannon somehow disassembled into its component parts scattered around his feet. Captain Singh stood in front of him, not even breathing hard, with that same unsettling smile she'd worn throughout the entire encounter. "Now then," she said conversationally, "would you like to discuss surrender terms? Or shall we continue this educational demonstration?" The commander's voice box made several stuttering sounds before managing to produce coherent words. "What? What are you?" "We're humans," Ambassador Reed replied, adjusting his tie again. "We're also your new neighbors, assuming the Federation accepts our membership application." "Which brings us to an important point," Dr. Torres added, consulting her device. "Vec Prime, I believe we were in the middle of discussing human defensive capabilities when we were interrupted." I looked around the atrium at the aftermath of what could only be described as a masterclass in applied violence. Then back at the 3 humans who had somehow managed to neutralize an entire rebel force without breaking a sweat or messing up their formal wear. "I think," I said slowly, "I'm beginning to understand why you don't carry weapons." Captain Singh's smile widened. "We don't need to carry them, Vec Prime. We are them." The Federation Council's emergency session that evening was unlike anything in our recorded history. Representatives from 47 worlds sat in stunned silence as I delivered my report on the human defensive demonstration. The security footage spoke for itself, but I still had to field questions for 3 hours. "You're telling us," the Altarian delegate said carefully, "that humans consider hand-to-hand combat a viable military strategy?" "I'm telling you," I replied, "that humans have turned their own bodies into weapons systems more effective than most of our advanced technology." "But they're so small," protested the Centaurian representative. "So fragile-looking." Ambassador Reed, who was attending as an observer, cleared his throat. "If I may, honored delegates, humans have a saying about appearances being deceiving. We've spent our entire evolutionary history being underestimated by larger, stronger, more naturally dangerous species. It's taught us to be very, very creative about warfare." "Creative how?" asked the Vorthan observer. Dr. Torres stood and activated a holographic display. "Humans are the only known species that actively studies other beings for the specific purpose of learning how to defeat them. We call it martial arts, and we've been developing these techniques for over 4,000 years. Every species we've encountered so far has weaknesses we can exploit with the right knowledge and application of force." "You mean you've already figured out how to fight all of us?" The question came from the Draconian Empire's representative, and his voice carried a mix of alarm and grudging respect. Captain Singh, who had been sitting quietly throughout the proceedings, finally spoke up. "With respect, honored delegates, we figured that out within the first hour of arriving at this station. Dr. Torres has detailed files on the combat vulnerabilities of every species present." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the Federation Chancellor spoke. "Captain Singh, are you saying that humans came to this diplomatic summit already prepared for war?" No, sir, Captain Singh replied calmly. We came prepared for anything. War, peace, negotiation, cooperation, or, if necessary, survival. That's what humans do. We adapt. But you said you wanted to join our alliance, the Altarian delegate protested. Why would you analyze our weaknesses if you wanted to be our partners? Ambassador Reed leaned forward. Because knowing how to hurt someone and choosing not to is the foundation of trust. We could have easily killed every rebel who attacked today. Instead, they're all in your medical bay, being treated for minor injuries and probably wondering what hit them. The point, Dr. Torres added, is that humans don't view violence as a first option. We view it as a final option that we happen to be exceptionally good at. I watched the delegates process this information, saw the moment when the implications truly sank in. Here was a species that had just demonstrated they could neutralize any known military force using nothing but their bare hands and some creative thinking. And they were asking politely to join our peaceful alliance. The vote wasn't even close. 3 months later, I found myself back in my office, reviewing the final reports on humanity's integration into the Federation. The transition had been remarkably smooth, partly because word had spread quickly about what happened during the rebel attack. Pirates had suddenly become much more interested in avoiding human-protected shipping lanes. Aggressive species had developed a new appreciation for diplomatic solutions. Even the warlike Draconian Empire had started sending cultural exchange delegations instead of battle fleets. Captain Singh stopped by to say goodbye before the human delegation returned to Earth. She found me staring out at the traffic patterns around the station, watching human ships moving in perfect formation with vessels from dozens of other worlds. Having second thoughts about our membership? She asked. Quite the opposite, I replied. I was just thinking about something you said that first day, about humans being weapons. She nodded. What about it? You were wrong. For the first time since I'd met her, Captain Singh looked genuinely surprised. How so? I turned to face her, and I couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humans aren't weapons, Captain. Weapons are tools designed to destroy things. Humans are something far more dangerous than that. Which is your teachers. You showed us that the difference between civilization and barbarism isn't whether you can fight. It's whether you choose not to. You taught an entire galaxy that true strength comes from restraint, not from the ability to cause harm. Captain Singh was quiet for a long moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. Thank you, Vec Prime. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about humanity. Just promise me one thing, I said as she turned to leave. What's that? Next time you visit, maybe give us a little more warning before the demonstration. Her laughter echoed through my office long after she was gone, and I realized that in all my centuries of diplomatic service, I had never heard a more reassuring sound. After all, if humans were laughing, it probably meant they weren't planning to hurt anyone. Probably.